Welcome to Focus Today. I'm Steve Johnson. You know, they always say, as far as when it comes to politics, just follow the money trail and you'll see where it leads. What about your own money trail? How are you spending your money, and how does that influence your belief system, or vice versa? It's kind of the topic that Perry Atkinson recently discussed with Dr. Paul Kreitz. He's the author of a book called Money Matters, and they dealt with this whole issue of where you spend your money and what is it that you believe in.
Well, it's always a delight to have with us Dr. Paul Kreitz, and he is an author, a speaker, a Bible college professor, and president. He travels the world, he writes books, and this little book right here called Money Matters is one of the most simplest books on the subject I have ever read. And I want to encourage you to think seriously about getting this book. You can go to drpaulkreitz.com, that's C-R-I-T-E-S.com, and get a copy of it. The Truth About Money That No One Will Tell You, and we want to talk to him about one of the chapters in the book today. But here he is. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. The Dove hat.
It is official. I'm wearing the hat, but I told the producer my hair looks too good to leave the hat on.
No, that's great. Thank you, Paul, for that. That's good. I saw your little puppy dog there earlier. I was trying to figure out which one was the cutest.
Well, obviously the dog is very cute. His name is Elvis, and he is my buddy and my pal.
Oh, that's wonderful. Nice to see you, my friend. This book, again, thank you for writing this book. I have read it and then gone back and reread certain parts of it over and over. I actually look at it as a manual. So what made you decide to write this book?
You know, for years, Perry, I have wanted to write a book about finance. And there's been so much that has been said incorrectly, and so many people have been told things. And I thought, God, just help me and download a practical, pragmatic, but biblical and spiritual insights of wisdom, so that any person, a millennial, a Generation X, a baby boomer, can pick up this book, they can read it, and they can just say, wow, I got something out of this read. I put 10 chapters in here, and I promise you there's something that you can extract out of every chapter.
All right. For people to get it, Paul, just go to your website, drpaulkreitz.com.
Yeah, they can just go to paulkreitz.com.
Okay.
Paulkreitz.com. Paulkreitz.com.
Okay, and you can order the book there. All right, one of the subjects and topics I wanted to take on is Chapter 3. And the many times I've had you on, Paul, you kind of allude to this principle. And this time you inserted money, but so much of what we do follows our belief systems. And that's what you're saying here. Money always follows a belief system.
Well, the gambler believes that his next trip to Las Vegas, or a lottery ticket, or whatever, or gambling on the horses is going to make them wealthy. That's their belief system. You know, the workaholic believes if they can just, you know, work 60 hours a week and, you know, work extra time on the weekend, that, you know, if they don't die, they're going to be wealthy. Everyone follows a belief system. Some people are waiting for a relative to die to get their inheritance. Some people believe that, you know, if I do this, it's going to happen. But here's the truth of it is that if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. And I put in the book Dr. Phil's favorite line. And, you know, and how's that working for you? How is that working for you? And so you've got to change your belief system, how you think and believe about money. Well, and Perry, the problem is a lot of people are afraid of money because of the old teaching, the love of money. But I tell people it's not the love of money that you need to be concerned about. You need to learn how to respect money and think right about money.
All right, so what do you mean by respect money?
Well, what you respect is what you will research. You will study the subject. I had a man come to me one day and said, I want to be a millionaire. And I said, well, how many books have you read about finance and investment? How many biographies have you read about millionaires? He said, none. I said, well, then you would love to be a millionaire, but it'll never happen. Not until you respect the arena of finance and money. And that's why I wrote this book. This is a great starting place for anyone to get this book and put it in their hands and understand that money follows a belief system.
All right, so do we build and create a belief system about money, or do we, according to this, the money will follow our current belief system? So if we want to change, we got to change, I guess, right?
Right. You can't chase after money. It's like chasing a rabbit. Money is always waiting in a place. Money is always in a place. When you arrive at the right place, there's a right reward. And we're going to talk about that in future broadcasts. But for right now, you have to understand that the belief systems of your relatives, your parents, and I even put an example in here about the belief system of my father.
And that is?
Well, my dad grew up during the Great Depression. He was handed, with his 9 brothers and 2 sisters, he was handed an economy in ruins. And, you know, I asked my dad when I was a little boy, what did you do when you played? And he looked at me and said, we never played. We never knew playtime. I said, what about owning a pair of tennis shoes? He said, I never owned a pair of tennis shoes. He grew up in the Great Depression, and yet through their sweat and their tears and their determination and some principles that they bought into, they turned the whole world around. They turned the nation around. And I put in the book some of my dad's principles: paying everything by cash, taking personal responsibility. I have several things that I put in here. My dad's belief system: purchase everything by cash, negotiate every purchase. You know, my dad taught me to negotiate everything. I don't assume just because you say that that's how much it is, that to negotiate. My dad taught me to live within my means and remain disciplined and determined no matter what happened. So all those belief systems were put into me my entire life. And you know what, Perry? I operate in a debt-free life. I operate in a debt-free ministry. Debt is a foreign thought to my world. And I've been doing this now for my next birthday, 56 years of age, 57 years of age. I've been developing that. I forgot how old I was, but even in my ministry, going on 37 years of ministry, man, you know, we have not operated in debt. Yeah, we do some things on a monthly basis, but we pay it off at the end of the first of the month or the middle of the month. And God has helped us to have an incredible international ministry. And I've been so freed up of this, but it's all come from a belief system that's inside of me. Now imagine the person that did not have my dad as an influence, who just spent and lived by emotional decisions. And someone's listening or watching us today that's exactly where they have been, and they don't understand why they keep messing up. It's your belief system.
There's 2 things about your dad's belief systems that are paramount to me. The first one is the very first one, and that is find a good job, show up on time, work hard, and try to work overtime. If you talk to anybody that manages people or has an employment of several people, there is a common thing that we're hearing today, and that is the work ethic today is gone. What would you say to a person about that?
I want everyone to listen to me. If you're looking for a job, if you want to change some things in your life and in your career, I'm telling you, if your work starts at 7 a.m., you need to be there way before 7 a.m. If your job starts at 9 a.m., it's inexcusable for you to show up after 9. You need to be there before 9. My dad taught me, if I had an appointment and Mr. Brown down the street said, you come at 11 o'clock and you help me to work on my house, my dad had me down there at 10:30. Waiting on the front stoop of Mr. Brown's house. My dad taught me if you showed up at the scheduled time, you were late. My dad taught me that you didn't watch the clock, you finished the job. So if the job wasn't done when you were supposed to leave, you stayed there and you finished the job. And I'm telling you, there are some things that were poured into me, Perry, that have made me the success I am today.
That's wonderful. The other thing is, I think it's paramount that your dad mentions here, take very good care of what you have. We live in a disposable world, Paul, and more people, we don't take care of it. We don't value anything. No. We throw away what people in third world countries would call luxury. And you need to really take care of things. I have had the opportunity to raise many children, and they've all passed through that period of time where Jesus says, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death. I call that the teenage years. Yeah. Yeah. And so I've walked through that with all my children, and now my children are grown. I have a son that's 31 that's getting married this month. I have another son that's 30 that married and has my first grandchild. I have another son that's 29 that's finishing up his PhD. I have other children down the line. I still have a few children here at home, a couple daughters at home. And I'm constantly teaching them about their car, about their appearance, about their room, about their home, is that people see you before they hear you. You've got to take care of stuff. You've got to clean it up. You've got to get your car washed. And if you can't afford the car wash, get a bucket and soap and water and wash the car. You've got to take care of what God has given you. Don't expect God to give you something better until you learn how to steward what God's given you. Boy, that's great counsel. All right, let me take a break here, Paul. When we come back, I want you to take off on the thought that your belief system is loading you down or lifting you up. This is a great section of the book, and we're dealing with Chapter 3 today. The book is entitled Money Matters, The Truth About Money That No One Is Telling You, by Dr. Paul Kreitz. And you can go to paulkreitz.com and order this book. It's real simple. That's what makes this book so powerful. It's just simple. And I love it. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back with Dr. Paul Kreitz, and we're talking to him about his book called Money Matters, The Truth About Money That No One Is Telling You. And let me encourage you to go to paulkreitz, that's CRITES.com, and order the book. It's very short. You could probably read this in an evening, but I have learned, I've gone back to it on several occasions because you read it, it's so practical, and then you get so busy, you got to go back and remind yourself. This isn't a get-rich-quick book. Don't even begin to think that. This is a principle book. And we're dealing with Chapter 3, which is a very powerful chapter. It deals with money always follows a belief system. And you say in there, Paul, that a belief system does one of two things. It either weights you down or lifts you up. What do you mean?
Well, someone says, am I believing wrong? Well, it's a real simple question. How's life going? Is life heavy? Is it burdensome? Are you not moving ahead? Are you not finding success? It's a real simple question. And the answer is, it's your belief system that's loading you down or lifting you up. Because, see, you live in a culture, and I wrote it in the book, that every moment of every day, the culture is working and selling you the cultural core values. The cultural core values. What's the cultural core values? Have you been in to get a car lately? They don't talk to you about the price. They talk to you about the monthly payment. Oh, and we can lower the payment. Well, of course you can. You can lower any payment if you change it from paying it in 2 years to 4 years to 5 years. Of course you can. But that's the cultural value. You go into stores and you think that you're buying an appliance, but before you leave, you're buying this warranty and you're buying this and you're buying that. And the reality is, if you are made to believe what the culture is teaching you, you're going to be in bad shape. You're going to be loaded down. That's why you've got to get a belief system that's lifting you up. And that's what this book is teaching.
It's been often said that we end up being a product of our environment, and that does shape our belief system. So you talk about when you change your thinking, then you'll change your life. That seems very simple, but practically it can be kind of tough.
Well, Romans 12:1 says, do not be conformed to this world. In other words, don't adjust your thinking to get along in the world. Now that's not easy to do. That's not easy to do, because every day the world is pounding on you to conform. So what do, Paul? You are transformed by the renewing of your mind. I believe your mind is renewed by the Word of God, obviously. I believe your mind's renewed by your time in prayer and hearing from God, obviously. But I believe your mind is also renewed by the kind of people that you encircle around your life. I always say this, Perry, if you're the smartest one in your bunch, you need to find a new bunch. I mean, there are people who are older than you and are smarter than you and know more than you, and you need to make them your friend. You need to seek out, as the Bible says, let the older teach the younger. There are some people that you need to get to know. I wrote in my book, when I was a young man and married and had little children, and this money thing hit me in a big way, I did not know what to do. And I sought out some mentors, money matters mentors, people that would just start talking to me and helping me. And I would not be where I'm at today if it had not been for someone helping to transform my thinking.
There was a time, Paul, where the culture augmented, if not reflected, a more godly, principled way. Not today. Today, godly principles are in direct contrast to the culture. We're in a spiritual war. We don't want to call it that, but we are in a spiritual war whose values are really the true values. So the tug on young people today to succumb to the pressure of the culture has just never been greater.
It's an awakening that everyone has to have. You can keep going to doctors, but one day you realize you're responsible for your health. They're going to give you some pills. They're going to, tell you to do this, but ultimately, it's your belief system about your health that's going to keep you healthy and living a long and blessed life. And it's the same way with your finances, friend. It's the same way with your money. You've got to realize that what everyone's telling you may not necessarily be the truth. That which shines the brightest may not be the best. The people that look like they have it all together a lot of times really don't. And I want you to know that there's only two ways to learn: mistakes and mentors. And that first way is very costly. You can make mistakes in your life and your relationships and your finances that can actually stay with you the rest of your life. You need to hear this. It's why I wrote this book. It's why I'm paying the shipping to get it to you. I want you to read this. I want you to get this into your mind, your thinking. So does Perry. That's why we're taking a couple moments. Just imagine, Pastor, if you're listening to me, watching me today, if everyone in your church was debt-free. Just imagine what you could do for the work of God, for the kingdom of God.
Wow.
If people wouldn't burden down with credit cards and car payments and appliance payments and mortgage payments. Just imagine what the kingdom of God could do if the body of Christ would just get their mind renewed and thinking. And you say to me, oh, Paul, I've heard this before and it's impossible. But I'm telling you, please hear me, it's not impossible. It can happen. And all you need to do is to get something in your head so that you can produce what you want in your hand. You've got to change the way you think, change the way you perceive things. Your money is following a belief system. And if you'll believe better, you're going to get better. If you believe stronger, you're going to see stronger results. I believe so much in you. I want you to have this. I want you to have this teaching that will touch and change your life.
Well, let me just encourage you folks. He means what he's saying. And you can go to paulkreitz.com, CRITES.com, order the book, and he'll pay for the shipping. And I tell you, it's just a simple book of incredible principles. And again, paulkreitz.com. You can get it there. When we come back, get together next time, we'll be talking about everything in life is a test or a reward. We'll be talking about that. But Paul, you talk about getting out of debt and debt-free living. Of course, you know Dave Ramsey now is one of the hottest talk show hosts in America, and he deals with this very subject. And of course, he's Christian-based as well. So there's something to this.
Dave Ramsey if you go to my website, he's right there on my homepage. He's one of the endorsers of my ministry, and in fact, his studio is probably about 21 miles from where we're sitting here right now, where he does his incredible radio show. But you're right. The core value was Dave for years tried to make money in real estate, and then one day, when he was broke and busted and disgusted, God came into his life and he turned it all around, and he's operating. I went and spoke for Dave to his staff when he had 67 employees, and the last time I spoke for him, for his team, his staff, all of his team there, he had over 300 employees.
Whoa. So the subject obviously is on top of everybody, and yet the culture and our economy is based upon debt. How do we change that thinking? I mean, look, we're $18 trillion in debt, and at least that's the one that the indicator on the keyboard, we know that the unfunded mandates push that way up. But the whole system is debt related.
Well, debt is devastating.
Yeah.
Debt is devastating. It is a wrong belief system. You are reaping something today that you're paying for, versus sowing something today that you can reap in your future. And so I just want to tell someone that's listening, and you're sitting there saying, well, how am I going to get out of debt? All I want you to do is to look at those bills. I want you to set them out, put them in a folder, respect that debt that you have created. Number two, I want you to pray and ask God to help you. Number three, I want you to look up the 800 number or the number and go to the smallest bill. It may be an old credit card bill that's been rolling around there for $400 or $500. And I want you to call that company and ask them what they would settle for if you sent them a check today. Ask them what they would take. Would they take 50% and just close out your account? And begin doing that from the littlest to the largest. And you will be absolutely amazed how God helps you to bring increase in your life. And I'm telling you, when God finds out that you're serious about increase and blessing, God will bring increase and blessing into your life. I have found this to be true. And I'm praying for you. I'm praying that God will cancel debt. I've seen single parents, single moms cancel debt and move forward, and God's opened doors for them to change their life. Money matters. Money matters, and it always follows a belief system.
Well, Paul, you're inspiring, and I just want to again encourage you to grab this little book. You could read it in one setting, but you won't do that. You'll read it, and then you'll keep going back to it. It's called Money Matters. Dr. Paul Kreitz. Go to paulkreitz, CRITES.com. You can order it, and he'll pay the shipping back to you. We're doing this series with Paul. When we get together again, we'll go right over to Chapter 4, and we're going to go all the way through the book. And this series is at the Dove website up on YouTube. And Paul, I encourage you when we do it, go to the Dove website, get the YouTube address, and put it on your website.
I'm going to do that. Yeah. I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm going to be leaving in a few moments, and I'll be wearing my Dove cap.
You're a smart man. Look at that.
It will go with me today.
Right. Thank you, pal. God bless you. Good to see you again.
Thank you, my friend. Okay. God bless.
Bye.
Well, we've got a lot of decision-making issues to be talking about today, including some of those towards the end of life. We're going to be discussing the ongoing series of lectures from COHO, the Choosing Options, Honoring Options group, and we're going to be talking to a retired cardiologist about some of those coming up and why you need to know about the pulsed form. You're wondering what it is. We'll tell you about it coming up in about 2 minutes here on theDove.
Hi, I'm Paula and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
To Focus Today, Steve Johnson with you, along with Dr. John Forsyth. He's a retired cardiologist and COHO Chairman Emeritus. COHO is not the salmon, it is choosing options and honoring options, and it has to do with decisions that you make to make sure that things are put into place as you kind of move into your life, into the sunset years and so on. And you know, we've talked before about some of the seminars that are coming up, and I know you've got one coming up in April, but let me discuss the most recent one. It's called Forks in the Road, Choosing Levels of Treatment. You've been a part of making these happen. On March 12th, what is the discussion going to be about?
It's going to be about one of the sections of the pulsed form, this wonderful form that Oregon has now had in place for 10 years, by which people can help to decide for themselves ahead of time the kind of care they would prefer at the end of their life. So the three parts of that: one is whether one would want to be resuscitated or not, one is whether or not one would want artificial nutrition and hydration at the end of life, and the third one, and the one we'll be talking about this week, has to do with the intensity of care. And in that regard, in the pulsed form, there are three choices. One is comfort care, which is what most people choose for care at the end of life. One is really vigorous care, intensive care. Only a tiny percentage of people actually choose that when they have the option. And then the other is kind of something in between, going to the hospital, having comfort care, and maybe a little something more if specific reversible issues are present.
So the first one you mentioned, which is a comfort care, is that kind of like a hospice type of a care? Is that fit in that category?
That is the kind of care that is offered in hospice, but hospice is pretty much limited to the last 6 months of life. And so comfort care is something that people choose oftentimes sooner than that in their life. It can be integrated into regular care, into aggressive care, actually. So.
Okay. You know, before we get too far, I want to mention about the pulsed form,
yes,
which stands for, let me get it right, Physician Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. Now, we've heard of these kinds of, I guess they are forms before, and here's a sample one. It's very pink. They are this color, right? Okay.
And it's one page.
Okay, that's nice.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So, in other words, somebody fills this out and it is an indication about life resuscitation, how the end-of-life treatment should be given if they cannot do it on their own. Is that the idea behind that?
That's exactly right. One of the things that we know from a large research study that was done about 5 years ago at the University of Michigan is that 70% of us in the last month of life are unable to participate in making decisions ourselves. And so other folks, well-meaning folks, our family, our physicians and so forth, end up making those decisions for us if we don't have something down about what our preferences are. Universally, or almost universally, when it's left to that vacuum, those decisions are made to do everything possible, the most intensive care. Whereas if we ask people ahead of time and they indicate ahead of time, only 6% of people choose to have aggressive or intensive care at the end of their lives.
So they may choose the more passive or something in between the two, is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
There are three choices with respect to intensive care on this simple pulsed form, which one can decide ahead of time. Now, you don't want to do it way ahead of time because you don't want to rule out something that might really be of value to you. So this is for people who have serious illness, who are approaching and know they are approaching the end of life, and so they can establish their preferences. It must be signed by a physician. So a physician must say, you know, you are near the end of life, and these are indeed your preferences. So it carries a lot of weight in the medical world.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that this isn't something that somebody who is not in that situation would fill out. Everyone understands there's a diagnosis, there's a problem, the doctor has signed off on it. So the doctor keeps this in his office, does he, this form itself?
No, actually this goes with the patient, everywhere the patient goes.
It's pretty big. How do you do that?
Well, there is a small part that one can put in one's wallet, interestingly.
Okay, and I've wondered about that because here,
yes.
if you have a problem and you're incommunicative or whatever,
right.
I would imagine that the emergency people come. Is this something that is a wristband or around your neck, or what is it that
There's
indicates
a little wallet card.
Okay.
You can get a wristband that says you have one of these, but the nice part in Oregon is that a copy of this form is available within 2 minutes from a central repository that's up at the medical school in Portland. And so if you have a heart attack and an ambulance picks you up and you have this little card,
right.
They know to call this 800 number, and within 2 minutes they can know what your preferences are.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because I imagine that would put some of the resuscitators in a difficult situation if they didn't know what to do with that.
Absolutely. They are under the gun legally to proceed with full-bore intensive care unless a person has indicated otherwise. Fortunately, here in Jackson County, through the direction of Dr. Paul Rostikas, who is the head of our EMT system here, it's a large system, our EMTs are really schooled and very knowledgeable and very respectful of people who have these kind of choices on a POLST form.
Yeah. Do you have any idea how many people have filled out a POLST form right now?
The POLST form, since we've had this repository, there are over 300,000 Oregonians who have completed a POLST form and have it on file. In Jackson County last year, there were about 1,500 new POLST forms filled out and placed into the repository.
I would imagine that they find out about this through their doctor. Is that right?
That's where you get this form.
Okay.
This has to be done with your doctor. And so this is you and your doctor having this discussion ahead of time, and he's saying, or he or she's saying to all caregivers, this is what this person really wants, and I'm signing on the line here to say this is what we like done. Okay,
now that's kind of an overarching desire to have people fill this out, I think, as they're looking at this whole Facing Mortality series that you have going on. Talk a little bit more about the choosing the levels of treatment that's coming up on March 12th. Now, this is going to be, let me get the place correct. Is this at the Smollen Center once again? Yes, it is.
This is at the Smollen Center.
Okay, March 12th, and you always have two of them, one in the afternoon and one in the evening, so 2 o'clock or 7 o'clock. We'll tell you more of the specifics on that. So does this POLST form then come in directly to the choosing levels of treatment? Is this the treatment we're talking about in this form? That's exactly right. Okay. These 3 levels of care, of intensity of care at the end of life, are really the broad choices that we have. And so this makes them explicit in this. And so each of our speakers, Dr. Bruce Van Zee is going to talk about, he's a retired nephrologist here in the Valley, is going to talk about comfort care and what that option means in care at the end of life. Dr. John Jackson, one of the most beloved internists in the Valley, who just retired himself, is going to talk about the intermediate part of things, about what might be entailed if you choose to have intermediate care at that point in life. And what does that mean? Right. And Dr. Brian Gross, who is one of the most honored and able cardiologists in this part of the country, is going to talk about the intensive care and what that might look like at the end of life. So 3 very highly respected physicians with a lot of experience in each of these are going to talk about kind of what these 3 forks in the road might look like. I see. So, all right, now you're the the ninth inning batter here, coming up to hit the home run on
Right.
April 16th.
On April 16th, and there's a reason for that. April 15th, as you know, is...
Oh, tax day?
Yes, and so there are a couple of things in life that we don't have much choice about. One of those is taxes, and one of those is what happens in the end of our life.
I can see you already know what you're going to be talking about on the 16th. Let me mention, it's Creating Your Advance Directive. It's a workshop. So is this, people are finding out about the information here, is this where they actually come and fill out forms?
That's right, and what we're talking about is the Oregon Advance Directive.
Yeah, let me hold this up here. Now, this is a form. Is this something that they can get from their doctor?
Or you can get those at the COHO meetings or at the workshop.
And give an idea. I mean, this is fairly small, but it looks like there's a lot of information in it.
This is much more extensive than the Pulse form.
Okay.
It's much more general, and it's about preferences, not about a doctor's orders. So this can be done early on, any time in life.
And fill that out first before you get to the nitty-gritty of this.
Long before you get to the nitty-gritty of this.
So in other words, does this help people work through questions they may not have even thought of?
That's exactly the point, Steve. It allows us, because in our society, and many of us as individuals, have real difficulty in talking about this subject. And so this helps us begin to have this very important conversation with ourselves, with our families, with our caregivers, about what kind of care we might really want if we have a terminal illness which is not reversible.
Now, even though some people may have missed out on you had a seminar on the 19th and the 26th, they can still come in on the 12th.
Absolutely.
And catch up, kind of, right?
Each of these is a separate entity unto itself. And so this one then moves from choosing options, which we've been kind of working on, to really kind of in the final stages of life, what kind of care we really want in addressing these three levels of care that are addressed in the Pulse form. So.
All right, as you look, because you helped to plan all of this out, right? You had a hand in this. What is it that you hope, once people have gone through either all of these or some of the key ones, that people will have decided in their mind? What is it that you hope will have been achieved that way?
What I would hope for is that people would feel more open about talking about this issue.
Because right now it's kind of closed. Is it between family members? They just don't want to discuss it?
It's often taught not even amongst family members. We oftentimes don't talk about it until the moment of crisis arises. And we miss out on this wonderful opportunity to have such a meaningful conversation, to talk about what matters most to us in the world with the people who matter most to us. And so that's what I would see as the real opportunity here, is for people to have this very meaningful conversation and then to write down a few things about what they would actually like. But the forums are really secondary to having that discussion.
It looks as if the forums are almost just a conduit to be able to use, to have that conversation.
It's really a conduit to the conversation, and it is a means of communication to caregivers. When we get to that point in our life where many of us are unable to speak for ourselves in that regard.
From your experience, I mean, we're talking about somebody like yourself who's been doing this a lot. Do you find that a lot of people do lose that ability to communicate?
Yes.
I mean, is it a high percentage from what you've seen?
It's about 70%.
Oh, wow, that's higher than I thought.
In the last month of life, about 70% of us are either mentally or physically incapable of sharing in decision making. Now, we may be able to transmit our emotions and so forth, but we're unable cognitively to help with the decisions. And these are not easy or simple decisions. These are oftentimes pretty complex decisions.
And the nuances of it all, I imagine you cover here, but that would be difficult to have when it comes push to shove and somebody can't really communicate. You're trying to guess what their thoughts are, and maybe in a broad sweeping stroke, hopefully you can find out, but not the
and oftentimes details. In a very small passage of time. You know, if you're having a heart attack or you're having a cardiac arrest, we don't have much time to talk about that at this point.
And this is a community also where we're still seeing this population age, aren't we? I mean, there are a lot of retirees still coming here, aren't
That's what's really pushing this, I think. This great demographic wave of baby boomers who are now entering the time of their life where they're beginning to develop these serious illnesses, caring for their parents who have these serious illnesses and beginning to have to confront these very difficult decisions.
Hey, this stuff wasn't supposed to happen to baby boomers. It was supposed to happen to everybody else.
That's been the thought of every generation, I'm sure.
Dr. John Forsyth, retired cardiologist and also COHO Chair Emeritus. He'll be speaking on the 16th. In the meantime, it'll be March 12th for Choosing Levels of Treatment, exactly what he was talking about with the Advanced Directive book. For more information, you can go to the website, I would imagine. cohoroguevalley.org, cohoroguevalley.org. In the meantime, it'll be March 12th, 2 in the afternoon or 7 in the evening. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and coming back, we're going to be talking to Laurie Cardoza-Moore about, she was sitting there and she was able to, I don't know if she shook hands with Benjamin Netanyahu or not. We're going to find out. Coming up in a couple minutes here on The Dove.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Welcome back to Focus Today. Steve Johnson here with you, along with Laurie Cardoza-Moore, founder and president of Proclaiming Justice to the Nations. And she had a choice seat last week that very few people in the entire world were able to sit in. And she is our guest today because she was in the Congress when Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, was giving his speech. And Laurie, Perry said that you were going to be there. How did you get such a coup of a seat like that? How'd that happen?
Well, it had to be God, because I understand that they had a 10% increase in requests, or 10 times increase in requests to be in that gallery to hear the Prime Minister's speech this year, prior to the other previous 2 times that he was there. But it was just absolutely phenomenal, and I have to thank my Congresswoman, Marsha Blackburn. You know, she has been a tremendous supporter of our efforts at proclaiming justice to the nations. And she, you know, it was interesting because when we first heard that he was coming out, I had contacted her office and just said, you know, are there any tickets? Is there any way that I could, you know, be part of, you know, the gathering there that day? And I didn't hear anything for weeks. And then 10 days out from the actual event, I got a phone call from her office and they said, she has 1 ticket and you've got it. So it was just a tremendous honor. And, you know, it's a testimony to the work that we've been doing at pjtn.org. And I think it's starting to be recognized, of course, in Congress and in other areas across the world, really, within the Christian church, about our responsibility as Christians to stand with our Jewish brethren and defend the state of Israel. And I'm telling you, if there was ever a time that we should be doing that, that time has come. The church has to make a decision. Is she going to be like Ruth, or is she going to be like Orpah when it comes to the nation of Israel? Is she going to go back, return to her pagan gods, or is she going to follow and stand with Israel and protect Israel and protect our brethren, not just in the land, but around the world? And we are witnessing, you know, the rise of global genocidal anti-Semitism. At the same time, we're witnessing the slaughter of Christians throughout the Middle East. And to hear the Prime Minister deliver his message about the existential threat that we face in the West, it's not just Israel. Of course, Israel is the front line of this battle. But this is a threat to the United States of America. They have missiles that can hit the east coast of the United States. It's very frightening as Americans, as Christians, to see what this administration is doing to bend over backwards to negotiate with the lead sponsor of terrorism. It's not a surprise, because we've been following the Obama administration's policies since he came into office. This is part of his agenda, is to negotiate. We know that when in 2009, when he went and spoke before the Muslims in Cairo, and all the clerics were all there to hear his message, and he started with the condemnation of the United States on his, you know, it was termed his America Apology Tour. But we as Christians in this country have a responsibility, a biblical responsibility, to stand and be relevant at this hour. We are in the last days, and we can decide, or either we're going to be overwhelmed, and I hear from people all over the world. People feel overwhelmed that the battle is too big, and the threats that Israel faces. Israel's threat is the West's threat. And if we do not defend Israel in the front line of this battle in her neighborhood, there is no way we're going to be able to defend our freedoms in ours.
You know, and that's a theme that we heard Benjamin Netanyahu say during the speech. Having watched the whole thing via TV, of course, and you were in the audience there, everything that he said, I was trying to think, okay, what would somebody who is opposed to either the Prime Minister or to the plans of the Conservatives have to say about this? And I found very few things, yet the reaction from some of the Democratic House members and senators was rather astounding. They felt miffed, they felt embarrassed, they felt it was weird emotions. I just thought it was kind of an odd way to interpret it, because we weren't dealing with facts or issues. It was that they felt they were being lectured and all the rest. Were you a little surprised when you saw that reaction after you had actually been sitting there listening to the whole thing?
No, I'm not surprised. They're pathetic. That's the bottom line. Those people who sat there, and I will tell you, I was sitting in the gallery. I had a great view of the whole room as the Prime Minister spoke. Those Democrats sat over there in their corner, pouting, with their arms folded. They wouldn't get up to applaud or offer applause to the Prime Minister, to his message. He came to the United States, to the American people. And for the Obama administration, for the president of this country to tell him he doesn't have a right to come and make a case to we the people. We have to remind the so-called constitutional president or attorney, the lawyer, Obama, that this government is a government of we the people. And unless we as Americans stand up and take back control, and I want to encourage your listeners to go to our website at pjtn.org. There is a petition there. We have got to turn up the heat on Iran. We have got to squelch the agenda of this administration. This administration is threatening the very livelihood, the very survival of the West, of our future for our children. And if we don't speak up, we're going to end up getting this. I'm telling you, this is a defining moment in history. And the message that the Prime Minister brought, in fact, John Boehner, it was stated that John Boehner was going to present the bust of Churchill to Bibi Netanyahu. Bibi is the world leader. There is so much resting on his shoulders. Israel is called to be a light to the nations, and you can clearly see that the nation of Israel is rising up to be that light, to defend people's freedoms. There is no place in the Middle East where Christians can survive freely or live freely and worship and practice their faith freely, except for Israel. We just heard again this past weekend, Boko Haram is saying it slaughtered more Christians, and they're aligning themselves with ISIS. Well, who helped fund ISIS? This administration, our tax dollars. This should make every American irate. We should be throwing out every congressman or senator who has supported this and has been unwilling to speak up on our behalf. And if we don't, as Christians, stand up, who will? Because we're charged with this responsibility. As Jews and Christians, as people of faith, we are charged with the responsibility of defending the innocents. And that's why we have got to sign the petition on the website at pjtn.org. We've got to contact our congressmen and senators and tell them, you turn up the heat on Iran, and you reinstitute the sanctions that were stopped, and you increase them. We don't negotiate with terrorist regimes. We are the United States of America.
All right, Laurie, I wish we had more time to talk, but I'll tell you, I can tell your passion right there. What's the website again where people can sign that?
pjtn.org. And then please encourage your family and friends to do likewise. We need hundreds of thousands of signatures, because we're going to send this to Congress to tell them, we don't care what the administration says.
Okay.
We want pressure on Iran.
Laurie, thank you very much. Laurie Cardoza-Moore, founder and president of Proclaiming Justice to the Nations. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. And thanks for watching Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.